Good morning, everybody. This is Doug Little. I'm the Director of Marketing at Zia Consulting, and on behalf of Zia Consulting, I'd like to welcome you all to this morning's webinar. In just a moment, I'm going to turn this over to Pat Myers. He's our Executive Vice President and in charge of the intelligent document capture practice that we have at Zia. He's going to be talking about managing mortgage documents with Ephesoft Intelligent Document Capture. A couple of logistic issues before I turn it over to Pat. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the chat window on the GoToWebinar, and we'll gather those up and have time for questions at the end. Also, if you have any difficulty with audio or visual from this broadcast, please put that information in the chat window and we'll take care of it right away. So, without further ado, I turn it over to Pat. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Doug. Hi, my name is Pat Myers. As Doug said, I'm the Executive Vice President and in charge of our capture practice here at Zia Consulting. Today's agenda, we're going to talk about why Zia. So we're going to talk a little bit more about Zia in a broader scope than the main topic today. I'll try to spin through a lot of that pretty quickly so we can heavily focus on the Ephesoft with mortgage documents as well as the demo itself. Then we're going to talk around the solutions for financial services that Zia provides, and then we're going to just kind of do a brief overview of Ephesoft and why Ephesoft. Then we're going to start talking about the paper problem and Ephesoft for mortgage documents, and then the demonstration that we have today for you. So why Zia? We started this phrase probably about 9 months ago, and it's essentially something that we were hearing from our customers that they wanted was these solutions from paper to mobile. We're a systems integrator, so we use other software to provide heavy lifting, and then we integrate them for total solutions. But was based on these requests from the customers to be able to deliver content throughout their enterprise. I think that this is important because there are a lot of providers out there that sell technology, and they have a piece to the puzzle, but when we come in, we actually look at the entire problem and try to provide a roadmap to the entire solution as opposed to fitting in just a piece of that puzzle. I wanted to also talk about the pieces that we have for our solutions to paper to mobile, which are inclusive of the content management. So within the content management stories, you have to have that as a core to be able to make sure that the right people are getting the right information, that it's locked down, that it's versioned. There's a lot of pieces to that content management. And then being able to get information into it by means of intelligent document capture. And so you can actually, it's kind of a misnomer. It's heavily weighed on a lot of paper. But when you have images, and so those images could already be documents, like PDF documents, it can still do classification and extraction on those documents. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. We also provide portal solutions, or so custom UIs, which are inclusive of portal solutions. Might be something that is ground up, or some of the other technologies that we're going to be talking about, some of our own other partnerships. We'll be talking about that in a bit as well. Enterprise integration, a lot of the times you're going to have third-party applications in which are not part of our library or suite, but also want to make those that information readily available throughout the enterprise. So we have enterprise integration story. And enterprise mobility, being able to create and retrieve information on the go from your tablets as well as your phone. One of the major things of this slide is just talking about that Zia is founded on integrity. And so we have a firm belief that if we take care of our clients, our employees, and our partners, that everything kind of falls into place. And we like to believe that that's attributed to us being named as one of the Colorado companies to watch this year. So we're very proud of that. This is a visual representation of kind of what we talked about, the solutions from paper to mobile, what we call content anywhere. So if you see at the top there, we have this ingestion, the capability of being able to scan, but again, you know, that can be electronic form already, classify and index information and push it inside of a content store. In this case, it could is Alfresco. It could be some other one that you're using currently. Being able to provide that information to other information, you can see that we have Salesforce and Oracle, et cetera, and that is being available through MuleSoft. So it's one of the the enterprise service buses that we work on and which we have partnership with. And then being able to provide those custom UIs and user interfaces by means of things like Alfresco Share, which is their main interface of Alfresco, LifeRay, which is a portal solution, and Open Workdesk, which is a product that's available through a company called WeWebU, in which we have partnership as well. Also being able to push these to your mobile devices, and so being able to have applications that could digest and ultimately be able to create and manipulate the documents and put them back inside your repository. So we talked a little bit and showed you a little bit about the partnerships that we have. And so some of these partnerships include Ephesoft and Alfresco, in which we've been named Partners of the Year this year. So we've been working with them very closely over the last few years, Ephesoft over the last couple. The WeWebU, which is an interesting company out of Germany, which has a product called Open Workdesk, and they also have this Zidi. We're working with them through a development partnership as well to provide their mobile solutions. LifeRay and MuleSoft to provide LifeRay for portal solutions and MuleSoft for the enterprise service bus integration. And we also have a slew of products, and so we typically build these around or on top of our partners' products. And so starting on the left, if you look at that Fresh Project, it's a project that we created, an add-on to Alfresco that gives you the capability of project management inside of Alfresco that has a tightly coupled integration with MS Project, so you can be able to visualize Gantt charts and do completion and assignment and round trip that back inside of the project. You can see that we have a number of mobile applications which started off with the Fresh Docs on the top right, and that was the foundation for our partnership for the Alfresco mobile piece. And so that was actually the base code that we started with. Fresh Docs is a generic CMIS application that you can be able to use other or you can get information off of other CMIS repositories. I'm not going to talk much about CMIS today, but if you do have questions around that, then please feel free to reach out to us and ask those. We also have a product in which is in the center called Insight for Ephesoft, which gives advanced reporting capabilities, being able to find root cause analysis of how your batch classes are actually functioning and who actually worked on a particular batch instance. We'll go into that a little bit further into detail when we do the demonstration. I want to briefly mention a couple of the other offerings that we have, which is around managed cloud. So being able to have a lot of these products that we are mentioning, that we have partnerships, and we can either manage those either inside of an EC2 instance or on your own cloud. But the nature of it is to be able to have these applications in which we understand very well managed by Zia. Our enterprise mobile CMS, as I mentioned before, it all started with Fresh Docs, which is CMIS, which was the foundation of the Alfresco mobile. And also the development partnership that we have with WeWebU, we're going to be pushing out actually the first version of Mobile Workdesk just came out, which is the mobile representation of Open Workdesk. So just discuss quickly or briefly around the verticals that we work in. So some of the particular ones, we're heavy in financial services and high tech, working with some of the world's largest tech companies to provide the paper-to-mobile solutions. We also work in legal, higher ed, healthcare, publishing, and we also have a newly formulated practice that's focused around government solutions at the federal, state, and local level. Drilling into the financial services a little bit more, especially around the Ephesoft product, we're going to discuss a little bit more on why the value proposition of mortgage document capture using Ephesoft. Also about regulatory compliance around being able to have something like Ephesoft and Alfresco being able to push those into a DoD 5015.2 repository and be able to have all of your dispositions set on your various documents. Also talk about transactional content management for commercial banking. That's pretty much the Open Workdesk forte up to this point. being able to have a group of documents move along with a certain security model and have a certain life cycle, as well as being able to have various roles see the documents in a different fashion as they log in without having to create a lot of customizations on the user interface. Being able to have BPM, so being able to have workflow, being able to process these, whether it be insurance or mortgage, commercial banking, and also being able to retrieve these from your mobile solutions. So let's talk about Ephesoft for a bit. There's probably a group of people that are on the webinar that have experience with Ephesoft and some that don't. So let's talk about it for just a little bit before we go inside of the demonstration and specifics around our mortgage offerings. So Ephesoft is a intelligent document capture product, which is enterprise class and open source, cloud ready, and it's a capture solution for mortgage banking, insurance, healthcare, accounting, and much more. So what is the difference between intelligent document capture and traditional document capture? Traditional document capture, for those that are not familiar, dealt heavily with being able to do a lot of front processing, so mailroom processing of being able to push, make jobs that were formulated around particular document types, so separation of using separator sheets or barcodes. So it's labor intensive to be able to process these documents, as well as being able to having to have these zoned type of extraction for being able to do indexing. IDC is much more than that, and so IDC has the capability of being able to understand your document's contents. And it can be used for mortgage processing, invoice processing, order processing, AR, AP, medical claims processing, business processing, insurance claims, records management for governments, human services, benefits forms. So it ranges from everything from your AP to your HR to some of the core business functionalities around insurance and mortgage. It also is a 100% web-based interface, both the administration and the operator interface, which is different than traditional document capture, where you typically have desktop applications that are managed at a per desktop level. Makes it very difficult for upgrades, makes it difficult to manage. It has a content-centric architecture, and what that means is that you teach the system to understand what the contents of the documents you're processing, as opposed to having to say that it looks this particular way or it has to be in this fixed form, and so if it's skewed a little bit, then chances are it's not going to be identified correctly or it's going to be indexed correctly, which leads to the classification and extraction without separator sheets or barcodes. So now you're able to, since it can learn through the contents, it's going to be doing OCR on that contents and then be able to look at those contents to be able to identify how to do the separation. So there's no longer those separator sheets. So it's I can put in a whole batch that may be some of one-page documents, some of 50-page documents, and let the system actually take over the heavy lifting of being able to sort those out and figure out what kind of documents they are. Free-form extraction gives you the capability of saying, look for a particular pattern in this entire document, like a Social Security number, or look for something like an invoice date. Look for those words as a key, and then look to the bottom right of it, and then look for a pattern. All the way down to some of the ICR and OMR, which gives you the capability of being able to do handwriting recognition or whether a checkbox is removed. And it uses RicoStar Pro version 6 on the back end to do those ICR, OMR, and OCR. And so you know that there's enterprise quality OCR going on in the background. It also is able to do database matching, so you're able to pool and index information off of external databases. So information that may not be on the document itself, or it could be that they're more free-form documents that you're processing, and so it's really hard to make regular expression rules of extracting the information, but it can recognize that it's somewhere on that document, and so it can match that up to a database row and then be able to index from that. It has a pluggability feature, which is really neat because it's a framework that allows you to grow with it. So you were able to have these this plug-in architecture. So you can it comes with a template, which is a mailroom automation template, but then you can customize that by just the user interface, be able to say that I want these specific steps for my implementation. That way you can streamline the processing. as well as being able to create plugins of your own. So this is a Java-based application in which you can create a new step that's very specific to yours. Maybe you have a custom ERP or ECM system in which you want to export the system to. And so you can create your own plugin to be able to do that. It also has points inside of that mailroom automation workflow to be able to do scripts. And so you can create your own logic, whether that be integration for validation or indexing. So you can create your own inside of the framework and the workflow that's already there without having to do customizations. CMIS integration, and so in this case we talk about Alfresco, but CMIS is a standard that's part of the OASIS standard in which we sit on the board as well, and of that standard, that is. And that is able to, that's going to be the SQL of ECM, if you will, and the common language to be able to find documents and retrieve documents and delete documents and create documents. So that works on anything from Documentum to FileNet to Nuxio. And then it has the capability of having your LDAP and Active Directory integration, so you don't have to come up with your own authentication and group modeling. So it can use your enterprise directory for that, for authentication and to specify which users should see which kind of batch instances. And its browser-based scanning is included, so any Twain device could be able to scan directly from the client into the server without any sort of temporary image being stored on the client itself, which there's quite a bit of financial services that's required for because they're worried about evidence and proprietary information being left on the desktop. So what's the mortgage processing? What are we here today for? The mortgage problem, and that's why it's really intriguing, is that there's an immense amount of paper. The typical loan has somewhere between 200 and 300 pages of various documents that can range anywhere from 250 types of documents to 500 types of documents. And they're all different paper sizes. They could be typed, printed, and signed. And there's some regulatory compliance and oversight over these. So you need some sort of way of being able to, if you have to have an auditing capability of being able to do that. So you have to have the correct classifications, the correct indexed information on all these documents. So the value proposition around Ephesoft for mortgage processing is around pre-closing. So pre-closing, the ability to auto-classify and extract information from those loan documents. So you're reducing the misclassifications and manually entered information. So what does that mean? That you can actually close the loan sooner. Post-closing, so Ephesoft can be able to create these packets. And then these packets are so neatly coupled with what these lenders want. And so you can actually fund the loan quicker. And there's some people that are using it today that went from an average of 10 days to 5 days of getting a particular loan funded. The capability of auditing. So a lot of people will still have to have a lot of paper or documents, images that are out there that they have to find the correct classification and extraction for. And so you're able to do that without having to hire 60 people to do these manual indexing and classification problems. And that leads me up to the, also being able to handle peaks and valleys of volume. And so it might be that that there's a lot of mortgages within a particular month because the interest rate goes down. You're not having to staff up for those particular events. You just size the system accordingly to handle those, and you can handle it with the same or very little increase of staff. So Ephesoft themselves, because they've been dealing with document classification for a long, document capture for a long time, and they have over 50 years of experience inside of loan document capture. And so you're dealing with a company that understands that process. They're responsible for some of the world's largest implementations of mortgage documents. And so the process when you're talking around Ephesoft is not necessarily to be able to retain. So today we're going to show you inside of the demonstration and getting pushed to something inside of like Alfresco for being able to do the storing it, being able to do business process, that kind of thing. So the process is simple at a high level of being able to input those information. So you're going to input it from various sources. So you can have that from email, you can have that from a directory structure, from fax servers, It could be from a different repository in which you're going from one repository to another. And then the ability to classify that information, extract or index the information that you care about, and then export it to whatever end source. Like I said, today we're going to be talking about Alfresco as the endpoint. So when you're talking about how do I train the system, you're going to be able to identify the sources of that information. So a lot of times you're going to collect those samples of the various document types. You're going to name and collect those samples. What's really neat, if there's some people here that are familiar with the more traditional document capture, is that a lot of times you would have to have 50, 100 samples of these documents to be able to train the system and identify these documents correctly. In many instances, you need one within Ephesoft to be able to do that. So when you're collecting the samples, it's a much less arduous task. So then the system learns this information. So you teach the system what that content is, those particular types of documents. And once you train the system, then you're able to classify the documents. So in this case, we have loan applications, HUDs, and good faith estimates, etc. And so you can start processing these from the various sources and be able to classify those. And then you create rules around what you want to extract, the index fields in which you want to get from the various documents. So I can have different fields associated with different document types and lift that information off of the document itself, or from external source, whether that be through a script or through some sort of external table that from the fuzzy database lookup. So now we're going to go into what does this actually look like. So when you're creating, let me get my sessions all set here. When you're creating a new batch class, what you're going to end up doing, much like we showed inside of that image, is figuring out, defining your various document types. You can see here you can have a single batch class, not these jobs that are associated with one type of document type. Many document types with a particular batch class, and then leave it to Ephesoft to be able to figure out how to actually assemble these documents and classify these documents. Once you've defined the document types, then you can define the fields that you want to extract off of that document. And then once you've defined the fields, then you're able to specify the rule or rules on how to get this information. In this case, it's looking for the word application. It's looking to the right of it, and then it's looking for a 5 to 12 character word with numbers and uppercase letters. And then, of course, you're able to test these. You'll be able to create regular expression listings, which means like validation patterns. So if they're required fields or they have to be a particular pattern, like they're a date or a social security number, then you can specify that information needs to be in a particular pattern. And then, of course, you're still able to define scripts or integrations to other applications that you have to either validate information or extract that information, index that information from a third-party source. From the administration, I can also see the batch instances that are flying through the system. Of course, there typically would be a lot more here, but you can see ones that are running, if there's any in an error state, and then of course there's a review and validation state. The ultimate goal of Ephesoft is the Holy Grail is never to have things go into a review or validation state, but for the sake of demonstrating both the administration and the operator user interface, then I have stopped things, particular caused errors, if you will, to be able to see that kind of interface. We're not going to go too much into, you can discuss workflow management, folder management, how to actually administrate this system. Go ahead and ask us questions. We can give you a personalized demonstration, walk you through those, and we'll talk about other ways about learning more around Ephesoft. So within the user interface, what you're going to see, or the operator interface, you're going to see kind of two major steps. So you're going to see that there's home, which lets me choose which batch instance I want to work in. A lot of people don't want that, so they can specify that people have to use the batch detail, which will actually feed me the next in the priorities. So you can set priorities on these batch classes, and then of course how long it's been in the system will dictate which one they're going to get next and to work on. But in this case, we're going to look at this review and validation. The web scanner we're not going to go into today, but that's what we talked about, giving direct access, the capability of being able to push information from the client, from a local scanner to the server. You can also use out-of-the-box software that came with your scanner, since you can, there's various ways of getting information out. So if you have a business process that says that you want to use this particular software, this capture tool, but then use for IDC, be able to push it to Ephesoft, you can do that as well. And then being able to upload batches, so I can select an image or images and then be able to upload those, select the particular batch class. I would only see the ones I have permission to see, and then be able to process those directly. But for now, let's go ahead and go back to the review and validation. So there's two major steps inside of the operator user interface. One is inside of the review. The review means that there are one or more documents that were unable to be identified with the confidence level that you set within the batch class. So in this case, it thinks that this document's a HUD, but it's not sure. You can see by this question mark that's up here next to this particular document. I can see that the rest figured out what kind of document it was and did the appropriate assembly of those documents. But I can still go look at them and review them if I want as well. So I can see that these are all of variable length, all of variable type. And one thing that you should note around this user interface, and this was done on purpose, is that it's pretty clean. There's not a lot of menus, there's not a lot of buttons, and it's because it wanted to design it for speed. So most everything can be done through a keystroke, and so the operators can learn these keystrokes and be able to whip through these documents very quickly. And one of the things you might ask is the document type, if I was going to set it, well, that's a long drop-down. It also has the capability of being able to do things like, oh, of course, sorry, wrong keystroke, to be able to start doing look-aheads. So now I can start being able to start typing and then find this particular one, document type, and then be able to assign it in that fashion. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and push that ahead. If I refresh this, you can see that now that document, that batch instance is now running again. So let's go ahead and take a look at the validation. So looking at the validation is going to seem very similar, with the exception being that now I see the fields that are associated on the document type. And so what I can start doing is looking to see where that information was extracted. I can also click on a value if something wasn't able to be retrieved. I can click on a value or rubber band a value to be able to retrieve the right information. And you can see that one of these has a validation rule, and it's because I define this as a float, and so a comma is not going to be accepted inside of this value. So I can see that there's a problem with this, and then I can fix it, and then I can push it on. Just to kind of go through here, you can see that various documents are going to have various fields. We can, of course, this doesn't have a validation to make sure that this was mandatory, but we can always populate that. So we can push this information along and look to see where the information was found if I wanted to validate if it was pulled from the right location. You can see that there's a separation of boxes here and still be able to extract that information. And let's go ahead and push this on. Let's go back to here. Let's say that that's saved. And now we can see inside of the batch instance manager that we have two running. One that's going to be showing up in validation very soon, and one that's actually pushing out currently to Alfresco. So what happens in our endpoint at this point? We can see within Alfresco what we did for an implementation is several things. So when it comes inside of Alfresco, it figures out the document type and the metadata involved, and because of that document type in some cases, it spun up workflows. We're going to see some more show up here in just a moment. So I can start looking through my workflow, and I can see that this was assigned to me. I can see the document itself I can see that the information that I retrieved from the document is persisted, and so this is a custom content model. So I can see that the information, and that's part of the CMIS, was able to do a content model mapping. So it went from what we defined in Ephesoft to what we define as our custom content model inside of Alfresco. I can also see, if I look in my document library, that I'm dynamically creating folder structures depending on the metadata. So if I was to look at these loan applications that were here for this particular Social Security number, I may have a loan application, then underneath there I might have a 4506 and a W-9, all with their respective metadata. So what did we resolve here? If we reflect back for just a moment, is we were able to process a batch which only had about 50 pages. So this is not essentially for a demonstration which may be real, but because you may be having hundreds of pages within a particular batch. We're able to separate those into the particular document types. We're able to extract information off of those document types and then push them and automate the process of pushing them inside of Alfresco for appropriate taxonomy as well as business process management. There's more to this story of mortgage processing than just this. This is for demonstration purposes, but this is a practical implementation. This is actually working. So it's pretty much end-to-end, except for the business process, pushing it through, getting close accomplished, getting all the document types, which would be part of the BPM, as well as getting the funding occur. So I want to briefly talk around Insight for Ephesoft. We talked about this is a tool that we created for being able to do advanced reporting. And so in here you can see that this is one of our test servers. So it may not be, this is going to have a lot of errors in it because that's what we're testing this for, is errors. But we're able to see the various document types in the batch classes and seeing the change rate and the pass rate. So that means the pass rate in this case means that nobody ever had to touch anything. But since we're testing mostly changes and making sure that that all works in the system, you're going to see that there's quite a bit of that inside of this particular instance. What this gives you the capability of doing is doing root cause analysis, saying, okay, well, what changed and why? So you can see within this particular document type in this batch class, I can keep on drilling down and be able to see that there was 21 document corrections and field corrections of 27. What that means is there was some sort of problem with either classification or assembly or extraction of the information. So I can keep on drilling down and be able to see that there was classification corrections, separation corrections, unnecessary reviews, and false positives. Classification corrections, all that means is that somebody had changed it. So it was marked as, I don't know what this type of document is, and then somebody inside the review said, made it a different type, and then they're able to do that. Separation corrections means that there was some sort of splitting or merging of the documents inside of the review step. So they had to change the document the way that it was assembled. Unnecessary reviews means that it was just below the threshold, but nobody ever changed that document type. And false positives, that's the big alert of saying that it made it all the way to validation. It thought it was confident of the document type, but then somebody manually changed it. And so that is my system is misclassifying, and I need to address it immediately. And you're able to keep on drilling down more, seeing what batch instance, what document, what was the confidence score. So there's applicable information for every single one of these, drilling all the way down. And that pretty much deals with finishes up the demonstration. So I wanted to talk about learning a little bit more around Ephesoft. And so one of the things that came out last week, in which I was one of the authors, is the book of Intelligent Document Capture with Ephesoft. So you can get that from pactpub.com. Just search for Ephesoft. It was written by myself, a couple others here at Zia, as well as the CTO Ike Havas from Ephesoft. And also, we're the ones that give the certified training, so we work with Ephesoft to come up with and deliver the certified training, and the next one is inside of December. You can look for that as inside of the services area of Ephesoft.com. So with that, I think that we can take any sort of questions.
Okay, let's see what we've got.
So one of the questions that came up is seeing how we can, how do you get started with Ephesoft or with Zia? So those are kind of a two-part question. How you would get started with Zia is a typical project engagement would be us coming out, doing an assessment, figuring out a roadmap. Usually, we're an agile shop, and so usually a very quick and not a waterfall model type of document that you received in the as a design, but it's a high-level design with a backlog of work, as well as the project, the whole project plan of being able to deliver it according to your priorities, your delivery schedule, your budget. How you can get started with Ephesoft is there's several different ways. You can have a 30-day enterprise trial, and so you can contact us around that and be able to arrange, and we will help with your 30-day trial. You can also, there's a cloud version of being able to kind of test and play with. It gives you the capability of creating one batch class. It's shared CPU. We can create a managed server for you. There's various ways. So go ahead and contact me at pat@ziaconsulting.com if you have any questions around that.
We also had a question about a little bit more about the content management side of mortgage docs, maybe specifically records management.
Okay, so the content model side of things is we work heavily within Alfresco, so we can talk around how we create solutions much like you saw today around specifying your business process, being able to push that inside of a records management module, so how you create those disposition schedules, how you get it inside of those after you finish your BPM. Again, contact us, and we have the solutions ranging everything from the processing of these documents all the way to the records management piece of that.
Okay, I think you already talked about, somebody had a question about training, but I think you've already covered that. Can you talk a little bit more about CMIS?
So CMIS is the Content Management Interoperability Services. It gives, it's a standard in which there's people from Microsoft, people from EMC, ourselves, Zia Consulting, that are that write the standard, and then there's libraries like Open Chemistry from Apache that give you the capability of being able to create this interoperability between and to and from various repositories. So those include Alfresco, that includes FileNet, Documentum, Nuxio, and if you would like to check that out more and have a compliant system with CMIS 1.0, you can use our Fresh Docs application, which is free and available inside of the App Store, iPhone App Store, and we're pushing out some new code as well for our Android app of that application very soon. And look out for the 1.1 standard of CMIS, which should be that's like, it's 1 year away or so, just because that process is kind of slow. But the initial draft is actually released from Oasis.
We also had a question about if we have any integration with document automation software that generates the originating documents.
No, we have not worked in that. I can be honest around. We haven't worked around document originating for the mortgage industry. We worked heavily within the processing side of things, so being able to determine from various banks those different, and also from end customers, those typical document types, but we're more on the processing as opposed to the origination side of things. That said, you know, that we understand the origination and could work with the software around that as well. So it would be an interesting discussion. If you can reach out to me at pat@ziaconsulting.com, and I'd love to engage in that conversation.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. Again, like Pat said, please let us know if you think of anything after you hang up from this, and get in touch with us and with Pat specifically for any questions about intelligent document capture, mortgage document processing, that sort of thing. So thank you very much for your questions. Thanks for being here this morning, and we will talk to you again soon. Thanks.